Hello and welcome to the NGMN MWC Press and Industry Briefing. We have with us today NGMN board members representing North America, Asia and Europe, who will provide updates on NGMN's strategy and new focus areas. So let me now introduce Arash Ashuria, SVP Group Technology Innovation for Deutsche Telekom and Chairman of the NGMN Board, Carlos Fernandez, VP Group Technology Innovation at Deutsche Telekom, Anita Dola, CEO of the NGMN Alliance, Yuhong Huang, Deputy General Manager of the China Mobile Research Institute, China Mobile, Luke Ibbotson, Head of Group R&D for Vodafone, Michael Irizarry, EVP and CTO Engineering and Information Services with US Cellular, and Emmanuel Delpont, SVP Orange Innovation Networks at Orange. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today from 3 different continents, as befits a global association. Arash and Anita, NGMN went through a significant transformation during this past year, including a rebranding, which you are unveiling today. Anita, what is the main news you'd like to share with us?
Welcome also from my side. So the news are NGMN, of course, will remain to be operator driven and focused on requirements levels. At the same time, we see that the industry is rapidly changing, and just to name virtualization, softwareization, disaggregation, all those new topics are influencing operators and the entire value chain, leading to the strong need to adapt and to change to be able to successfully manage those new opportunities and new challenges. Therefore, in NGMN, we saw the strong demand to also transform our strategy and focus topics and the way of work to enable even better, agile and concise output. In line with our new strategy, we also developed a new brand, which we are exclusively unveiling today.
Thank you, Anita. Arash, Anita spoke there of a number of new focus areas. Can you elaborate on these for us?
Yes, sure. So together with Anita and our dear board colleagues, we have been setting up a new strategy focusing on 3 main challenges, industry challenges, which is relevant for all our members and the entire industry. And we are going to do that while in parallel, we're still focusing on 5G in terms of continuing to paving the way for commercialization. These 3 topics are the route to disaggregation, with a particular focus on the end-to-end operating model. The second one is green future networks. And the third one is going to be 6G. And as you can already see from these 3 topics, they will be relevant for all the operators, but in terms of timing and the horizon, they differ, which enables us to focus on each of them with a specific skill set and a specific sense of urgency. For example, green future networks is an immediate challenge. And we have to start yesterday. And this is exactly what we have been doing already. The disaggregation channel is a burning platform, a hot topic for all the operators who are in the transformation from a classical operator into a software-driven organization. And obviously on the midterm and long-term horizon, there is 6G, where similar to what NGMN has been doing with 4G and 5G, we are paving the way ahead of a standardization to make sure that all the industry requirements are covered. And with all of that, we try to make sure that we are come up with deliverables which are significant, impactful, and most relevant for members and all the industry alliances.
Thank you, Arash. And Anita, as part of this rebranding, you have a new logo, which I understand has been designed to reflect your core values and focus areas. Tell us more about the objectives behind the new brand.
With pleasure. So our new brand builds upon and extends our new strategy. One of the objectives was regeneration. We want all generations to be involved in NGMN. And the logo composition is built upon the duopoly of our new brand idea. This is unity and practicability. The dual color scheme of our logo uses red to symbolize our human touch and blue to symbolize technology. So we unite human touch with technology. The circle is a metaphor for a group of people which is connected. So a connected group of experts and friends. And it has specific features by being open on two ends. So this symbolizes us in NGMN being open on one side for new members, new partners, new input, and on the other side, our strong commitment to produce relevant and concise output and to share this output. If you look carefully on the circle, then the circle's axis is tilted by 6 degrees, standing for the next generation and leaning towards the future. The special G has a forward-looking little arrow, which can be also seen as a speech bubble. Our new slogan, "We make better connections," has several meanings. On one side, better human connections, better networking. On the other side, better mobile connections, enabling better solutions, better services, better user experience, and greener connections. And the third meaning is by uniting the brain, sense, and hearts of innovation, we are increasing our capability to connect the right dots, enabling us to make better conclusions.
Excellent. Thank you, Anita. Well, let's take a more in-depth look now at the three strategic focus areas. NGMN's disaggregation E2E operating model project is led by Deutsche Telekom and co-led by Bell Canada and Smart. Carlos, what is specific about the Operating Disaggregated Networks project?
Thank you for the question, and let me start by stating that it is in fact a great honor and pleasure to present this key strategic pillar in NGMN strategy. The telco industry is indeed facing a transformation never before seen, with more and more players being added to the ecosystem, leveraging the fact that networks are becoming increasingly open, cloud native, and disaggregated. And here we refer to not only the decouple of hardware and software, but as well the split of several established monolithic network elements into new individual ones. This is happening across the several network domains, with Open RAN one of the most recent manifestations. The promise and prize are big. A diverse ecosystem, more resilient, one that fosters competition, drives innovation, and allows for better cost efficient. But it comes as well as a disruption of the established way of working and processes which have been optimized over the past few years. And the fact is that more and more these technologies mature and become competitive and ready to be used in larger deployments, the more operators face this decision, when and how to embrace this technology evolution. We need to consider that the starting point might be different across different operators due to their scale, geographical presence, current competitor landscape, level of maturity, legacy of their networks, amongst others. NGMN is the place for excellence on sharing and collecting the variety of experiences and issues of all those operators, to then collectively address them, pushing requirements to the industry and providing answers to our members accordingly. And therefore, it has to play an important role in this space. This is why it was decided early this year to embrace this challenge, and doing that with high degree of prioritization and focus, ensuring global coverage with project leads that cover Asia, Americas, and Europe in the persons of Lennart from Smart Philippines, Javan from Bell Canada, and myself, respectively. In addition to the appetite and desire of our members to look into this topic, what we also found was that several other organizations, while doing a great job on defining the architecture, specifications, and interfaces, have not tackled the problem from an end-to-end operating model point of view. I mean, don't get me wrong, we definitely need all those Lego boxes properly designed and instructions on how to use them accordingly, but we also need a guide so that our organizations can understand the impact of the disruption they are facing internally, understand how the industry is preparing to support them or not throughout this journey, and then plan according to their business needs the best approach. In parallel, They need to have KPIs on how to measure the success of that journey. This is in fact what we aim to deliver in terms of operating model, processes, tools, skills, all in a pre-competitive area. And when we speak with other organizations to complement our work and to deliver requirements, we do that broadly and generically. I will show some examples later on. When it comes to content, it is very important to establish a consistent approach and methodology to the work being developed. The work is being done with extensive number of operators inside the NGMN, which are actively contributing. As mentioned previously, we want to ensure that the problem statement is very well captured and defined so that we can properly explore the current options, the gap towards the identified challenges, and then derive actions towards the industry. As mentioned earlier as well, another very important factor is the establishment of a solid relationship between the work done at NGMN and other SDO and alliances. The work has to incorporate the evolution and development being done at those places, while at the same time, what we produce should be then fed back into those same organizations and foster that development, hand in hand. This is necessary to ensure effectiveness and impact of the developed work. Examples of those engagements are the cooperation agreements with Orange Alliance since autumn 2020, and more recently with the Linux Foundation since spring 2021. We are also discussing with TM Forum as well as GSMA on these topics. Additionally, we pay close attention to potential implication of new business models and verticals into the operating models. The reason for that is that we want to explore the possibility that there might be the need to have actually different approaches depending on those specific requirements when it comes to latency, reliability, or overall broadband connectivity. Finally, we want to present our members with the capacity to determine the available options and decision criteria on the best way forward by delivering blueprints in the pre-competitive area. As for deliverables, we have set up an ambitious time plan, one that we believe represents the right combination on one side of work maturity and on the other side, the urgency to provide answers. We started our work in March this year, and we want to have the first deliverable already this month. This should be a first step, focusing clearly on the problem statement as referred before, collecting all the different views from the operators and consolidating that view. The next step is then to open this into a broader NGMN community and develop our work so that we can have further conclusions around the end of 2021. At that point in time, we will assess how we continue the project and which areas require further attention and prioritization. So stay tuned. This is an exciting piece of work with an high impact into operators and industry in general.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Well, this leads us into the next and equally important topic of sustainability. Emmanuel and Arash, why did NGMN start the Green Future Network project, and what exactly is NGMN doing in this area? Emmanuel, let me start by asking you.
Yeah, thank you. The Green Network project was in fact inspired by the work that we did at NGMN on the second version of 5G white paper that we published last year. I would say that it is a topic of general and global concern and interest, and so it raised the attention of many companies. So hence it was identified as a very key topics for NGMN. Let me just set the background. So it is widely understood that the ICT industry have a big part to play in modernizing and creating efficiency in the high impact industries like manufacturing, transport, and agriculture. So the kind of enabling effects provided by ICT sector can efficiently contribute to lower the carbon footprint of those industries. Still, ICT sector can represent up to 2% of the worldwide carbon emissions, according to the ITU, and the mobile and fixed networks do represent up to 24% of those ICT emissions. And therefore, it is absolutely key for ICT to work on their own carbon footprint. So the Green Future Network project focuses on the identification and mitigation of the environmental impacts generated by the networks. It started last October, and the first phase should be over end of this year.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And Arash?
Yeah, well, as Emmanuel already elaborated, this project is led by Orange and Deutsche Telekom, and we have 24 NGMN partners from all around the world bringing their expertise and their knowledge with, addressing immediate topics, coming up with innovative solution. And more precisely, it's a composition of the entire ecosystem. So we have on one side 9 mobile operators collaborating with 9 mobile technology vendors and a number of industry and research institutes and other service providers, which gives us a good 360 view and skill set to address this challenge. If we now look at the project focus, it covers 4 major areas with 4 distinct deliverables. The first one is sustainability challenges and initiatives in the mobile network. The second one is network equipment, eco-design, and end-to-end service footprint. The third one is network energy efficiency. And the fourth one is metering. And we plan to have 4 dedicated publication on each topic, which will come with a set of requirements and solutions and urge the entire industry to move together on the same path addressing those. And from a timeline perspective, we hope to have 2 publications before the summer and then following up 1 in Q3, beginning of Q3, and 1 in Q4. And we hope with that together as an industry, we can shape and address this challenge.
Thank you, Arash. And Emmanuel, back to you.
Yeah, I would say that the NGMN Alliance is set to align the mobile communication sector with its entire supply chain, from component manufacturers to service providers, in order to address sustainability challenges faced by the ICT sector. In a press release published in April this year, NGMN urged all ICT companies to align investments with the 1.5 Celsius degree trajectory. This includes roadmaps for the full ICT value chain, which means for mobile and fixed networks, as well as for data centers, user devices, and enterprise networks. So in order to achieve these targets, the Green Network Project develops requirements and guidance to the full ecosystem. I may mention here some recommendations. Firstly, a focus is made on carbon neutrality strategy and the use of renewable energy in the ICT sector to reduce the overall carbon footprint. Also, green network KPIs are proposed to allow companies to measure their environmental fulfillment at network level and for future benchmarking. So this should help operators to learn from different strategies and adapt better solutions. Another important topics that we tackle in that project is circular economy. So circularity does focus on the full life cycle of network equipment and on how to reduce their impact on the environment, how to minimize the use of materials, and so on. So this includes some principles for network equipment design in order to better take into account the longevity and lifetime of the network equipment, easiness to repair, easiness to upgrade. So we make a deep view on eco-design principles for network equipment, as well as critical raw materials usage, a method on circular economy scoring, and the use of lean packaging. Let me remind that also green features have been introduced in mobile networks in the recent years. So 5G will offer even more possibilities to introduce advanced features and functions, allowing the networks to better adapt the traffic with the traffic demand, and therefore to consume electricity only when needed. So the continuation of this is explored in the project with a focus on the use of artificial intelligence. And maybe last quick word on advanced metering, which is also already mentioned by Arash. It is absolutely crucial for telcos to be able to measure the energy consumption of each and every different bits and pieces of the network, and this in near real time. So this practice should allow to better identify energy intensive areas of the network and to integrate dedicated energy management solutions to optimize the energy efficiency of the network.
Thanks, Emmanuel. And final comments on this project from you, Arash?
Yes, I think this project has been already a very good example of good collaboration amongst the industry and the ecosystem, allowing us to collectively work and address the most crucial areas within the sustainability. However, I think we all have to admit that we are at the beginning of a journey, and they are for the years to come, particularly with the focus from now within the next 12 to 18 months, a number of areas which we like to address and put more efforts on. And like to mention a few. On one side, for the work on critical raw material and the risk of the supply chain for the industry is one of the things. Then the development of the end-to-end service footprint calculation methodology is planned. And to name one more, energy consumption of disaggregated networks with deployment scenarios which are then driven by energy consumption optimization, which we want to study. Last but not least, there is also, I would say, the shared industry experience of applying new ways of working or new business model. A good example for you is operators rent and refurbish TV boxes. Something like this is super interesting for us, and we would love to understand more about this. How can this be applied, for example, for network equipment? Furthermore, we cannot neglect that on top of this, there are some other fundamental environmental footprint challenge, such as water consumption and pollution, which appears as the next critical crucial area resources when we have to think how we can address that. And let me finish by saying that NGMN, as a global operator-driven alliance, represents the entire value chain. And we are well set up to collaborate on these objectives, requirements, and commitments to achieve these important goals, global goals jointly. And we, of course, will not do this on our own and alone. We will collaborate and open to any type of collaboration with all the other organizations in our industry, GSMA, whatever organization where we collectively can achieve a better result in this field.
Very good. Well, thank you, Arash and Emmanuel, for taking us through the Green Future Network project. And so last but by no means least, we come to 6G, already a hot topic in the industry. NGMN's 6G project is led by China Mobile, US Cellular and Vodafone, representing the 3 geographic regions of the Americas, Asia and Europe. Yuho, let me start by asking you, what is NGMN's overall plan for 6G and what's the vision?
NGMN has the track record in substantially paving the way for 4G and 5G being adopted by mass market and end consumers globally, and is best positioned to have the same impact for the 6G to the whole ecosystem. Starting from 2019, there has been a significant number of discussions on 6G in both industry and academia. Many organizations have initiated work towards 6G. However, there are very few opinions that come from operators. In order to provide early and timely direction to the industry and to encourage a coordinated global effort in 6G development, in October last year, NGMN launched the 6G project, a new milestone for NGMN. We are very excited to be working on this future vision project and to set the footprint for generations to come. Our goal as an NGMN to remain at the forefront of next-generation mobile networks. As a global organization representing the entire value chain, NGMN is set to take the lead in providing impactful guidance for global 6G activities to respond to the need of end users, societies, mobile network operators, and the ecosystem as a whole. It is therefore essential that we start anticipating the future's societal needs and elaborate the drivers for mobile communications in future. The 6G project published the first 6G white paper focusing on 6G drivers and vision in April this year. This will be followed by user cases and end-to-end system requirements. NGMN will also facilitate multilateral cooperation with internal partnership and the relevant external shareholders, actively engaging with SDOs and the wider ecosystem at the right time, and will support in developing a meaningful vision and drive a successful implementation of 6G in the future.
Thanks, Yuhong. Well, let's move on to the Americas now. Mike, what is NGMN working on here and indeed already delivering?
Thanks, Guy, and hello all. We're proud to publish the 6G Drivers and Vision White Paper, and this is the first of a series of deliverables that the NGMN will publish within the next few years. This white paper, operators identify the key drivers for 6G and outline our vision for 6G and the future transition of networks that enable differentiated services with expanded market opportunities and novel experiences. Furthermore, the paper outlines the key challenges to be considered in a journey towards 6G, and it emphasizes the need for a healthy and unified global ecosystem and standards. We believe that the continuing evolution of the mobile industry and the underlying technologies must be guided by the imperative to safeguard the three fundamental needs facing the society at large and the telecoms industry specifically. Number one, societal goals. Future technologies should contribute further to the success of a number of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, such as environmental sustainability, efficient delivery of healthcare, reduction in poverty and inequality, improvements in public safety and privacy, support for aging populations, and managing expanding urbanization. Number two, operational necessities. There's a strong need to make the planning and deployment, operations management, and performance of the mobile operators' networks more efficient. And number three, market expectations. Customers' requirements need to be satisfied by offering new services and capabilities supported by evolving technologies in a cost-effective manner. We strongly believe that societal and operational requirements need to be considered in the development of a new generation of technologies. Operators are in a very unique position to engage with end users, including vertical industries, as well as user groups representing societal needs. The NGMN board strongly recommends that the aforementioned drivers are prioritized in global research, design, and development of the next generation of standards and technologies.
Thanks, Mike. And finally to Europe. Luke, tell us more about how NGMN is helping to support the technology evolution to 6G.
Well, I was going to talk about the purpose of the use cases work, because building on the drivers that Mike has just explained, we are looking at this, structuring it in three different ways. We're looking at use case groupings, which have the greatest opportunity to really create new value and meaningful outcomes. Again, very much reflecting the importance of the drivers that you just heard described. Secondly, we need to look at the technology enablers that would then sit behind and enable those new use cases. And thirdly, we're looking for a level of differentiation that the use cases would offer versus the fantastic technology foundation that we have today with 5G. So if I may, I'll just expand on each of those points very briefly. So a common foundational requirement for 6G use cases is that they must provide us with a very clear route towards creating value which can justify the very significant cost of developing a new technology and all of the R&D that goes alongside that, the deployment of the technology, and most crucially, the cost of operating and scaling that technology on a global basis. So the 6G drivers and vision paper has given us a fantastic framework against which we can start to measure and assess the different use cases and the validity of those against those key drivers. It's also very important that we have differentiation versus what's come before and what we're busy deploying today with 5G. So any new technological developments has to be assessed against the capabilities represented by a fully featured 5G network as defined by IMT 2020. Any improvements needs to be benchmarked against that reference. That has to include as well the consideration of the more pragmatic deployment scenarios that we're faced with as operators. Bearing in mind that we're always looking at the laws of diminishing returns if we're looking at successive generations of technology. So those are some of the things highest in our minds as we're developing the use cases. So how are we executing this? We're building on the high level guidance provided by the drivers and vision paper. We've successfully engaged this fantastically diverse group of people in the NGMN community. So we've kicked off the use cases. We've got a terrific mix of participation from academia, from technology companies, and of course operators. The plan, as you saw from Yuhong's timeline, is to publish our 6G use cases paper towards the beginning of next year. We want to time that so that we're able to provide very clear recommendations that would help to drive and shape the next phase of the ITUR process. Next stage, we'll be providing a lot more detail and specifics around the end-to-end system architecture and looking at some of the technology components and the candidate technologies that need to be studied further in order to enable the vision. So I think very exciting couple of years ahead. We're right at the start of the cycle, and it's going to be a fun ride, I think.
It certainly is. Thank you, Luke. And indeed, thank you everyone for sharing this overview of the NGMN and its ongoing strategic plans. Now, please don't close the video window just yet. Stay with us because coming up next is our live Q&A panel. We're giving you the opportunity to ask questions to the NGMN and its members. If you haven't already done so, then please submit your questions now. There's a form right here on the website. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back to the NGMN MWC Press and Industry Briefing. We recorded the presentations a little earlier, but we are now live and ready to take questions from our audience. And if you want to submit a question, please do so as soon as possible. We have about 30 minutes to answer as many as we can. Our NGMN board member guests have returned for the live Q&A, although unfortunately Arash is unable to join us. So let me quickly reintroduce Anita Dola, CEO of the NGMN Alliance, Carlos Fernandez, Vice President Group Technology Innovation at Deutsche Telekom, Yuhong Huang, Deputy General Manager of the China Mobile Research Institute, China Mobile, Luke Ibbotson, Head of Group R&D for Vodafone, Michael Irizarry, Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, Engineering and Information Technology with US Cellular, and Emmanuel Delpont, Senior Vice President, Orange Innovation Networks at Orange. Okay everyone, questions are already coming in from our audience, so let's select one to start with. And Anita, I think this first question is very suitable for you. The question is, You highlighted 3 focus areas during the presentation. Why these 3, and are they really the 3 most important topics for operators?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a brilliant one. So when we have chosen our 3 focus topics, we wanted to make sure that they are in line with 3 main criteria. So the first one is it has to fit to the NGMN's DNA. So we are an operator-driven organization, and we are embracing the entire value chain at the same time, being focused on requirements level. The second criteria was we wanted to take on board topics which are of high importance to the industry, where we can provide positive impact in short, mid, and long term. So that's the second criteria. And the third one was that it had to be a unique work item for NGMN for us, or complementing the work of other organizations, but not duplicating it. And therefore, we strongly believe that we have chosen the right 3 topics. Disaggregation is an extremely hot topic at the moment for the industry, and mobile network operators need to get it right with regards to the end-to-end operating model. We also include cloud-native future networks here and network automation, and we invite also the entire ecosystem to work with us on that topic and on the other topics, the classic ecosystem, but also the new ecosystem, new players in the value chain. The Green Future Networks one, sustainability. I mean, clearly this is a burning topic for all of us. We have the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and also here, by us having the entire value chain in the partnership in NGMN, we aim to provide clear guidance, so not only on requirements level, but also to develop solutions. And we know that the ICT industry at the moment is contributing with approximately 2% to the carbon footprint. We also know that we can also positively influence other industries. So this is a great topic in the short to mid-term. And last but absolutely not least, we have 6G, which is a long-term topic, but we have to start work now, as we all know. And in the same manner, but of course, with new ways of work, with new organizations also being additional cooperation partners now, we will provide impact and requirements and guide the industry to pave the way to make 6G successful for mass market adoption and the adoption by end consumers.
Thank you, Anita. And picking up on your last point there, we've got a lot of interest in 6G. We've already had several questions come through on 6G. So here's our first 6G question. And Yu-Hong, I'm going to direct this one to you. The question is, why do you think it's important to start work for 6G now?
Okay, well, as the industry expects 6G to have breakthrough technology and performance and capabilities, so there's a number of organizations, academia, and industry partners began to work on 6G potential technology. So we think operator as the network owner and service provider for future network and market. So it is important for us to start 6G activities and give effective guidance to the academia and organizations and partners to make the 6G technology study and system design can meet the real market needs, including network development requirement, operation requirement, and service development requirement. So that's why NGMN, as the operator-driven organization, we work together to identify the drivers and vision for 6G, and will continue to work on 6G detailed service requirement and technology study to contribute to the whole 6G development to make, we hope to ensure a global unified 6G standard. Thank you.
Yes, let's hope so. Johan, thank you very much for the answer there. Another 6G question come through. So Luke, perhaps I could start with you on this one. The question is, some organizations are also working on 6G use cases. How would NGMN's work differentiate from those others, and where does NGMN add value?
Another great question. I'd like to actually build on some of the response that Johan gave to the previous, because NGMN is led from, it's a community of service providers. So we're very much looking to see how we can help influence and guide the technology partners to come up with solutions that ultimately help us to solve problems for customers. So some of the things that we're looking at, for example, we're looking to see which of those use cases might drive us towards technologies beyond 5G that would cause us to depart from that. We'd like to understand what some of those key technology characteristics are that, again, that differ from the fantastic baseline that we have with the still rapidly evolving 5G ecosystem. And then by extension, look to see which of those technology components require greater attention and more study. But again, I think the difference between the work that NGMN is doing and perhaps the work that's going on with universities or some of the technology partners that are looking at the fundamental research and the art of the possible, we need to marry that in a way that allows us to bring solutions to market that help address what those future needs look like. You're doing a little bit of a crystal ball on the use cases, but that's the aim of starting early, is to start understanding where those requirements are likely to be and how we build technology that can scale to support them.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Luke. Question that's just this minute come in. Carlos, I'm going to ask you this question. The question is, what more can NGMN do to help bring together some of the fragmentation caused by multiple Open RAN initiatives and standards and specifications work, some of which have been created by NGMN's own members, rather than initiating the same efforts from within NGMN? Very topical one there, Carlos. Would you like to maybe start with the response to that one?
Great question. Thank you so much. First of all, in picking up on what Anita mentioned before, the focus of NGMN is actually to derive requirements to the industry, not so much to define architecture specifications or interface specifications. So there is a bit of a difference there. And as you can know, many operators that are part today of NGMN are also part of other alliances, such as the one that you referred as Orange Alliance. And for sure, inside their own organizations, they want to ensure that the strategy and the goals that they pursue on belonging to these organizations are fulfilled. So they also want to avoid clutter and they want to avoid duplication of work. Now, NGMN does not focus only in mobile access disaggregation, meaning the ORAN part. It also looks into the core, and therefore it has a broader span when it comes to understanding the overall requirements that an operator has from the network perspective end to end, and therefore can then pass those requirements to the different organizations to ensure that that feedback is taken in when they are designing those capabilities. This is why the focus that we are doing at the moment within NGMN is about operating model. How can we articulate the different activities being done on the different domains, access, transport, and core, and how can then the operators, leveraging on the well-designed interfaces and specifications from the other organizations, can incorporate that knowledge and make sure that their organizations are successful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. And thanks for these questions. Do keep the questions coming in. We really do appreciate them. And Emmanuel, I think I've got a question that's ideal for you here. This question's about the Green Future Network. The question is, can you explain more about the Green Future Network and why you decided to focus your work around those 4 areas you mentioned?
Yeah, good question. I would say first that despite the huge growth and exponential growth of the traffic data, the operators have managed to maintain more or less the electricity consumption, or at least to have a very low increase. Still, it is our duty to find new levels to decrease the electricity consumption, or at least to maintain it, and also to reduce the carbon footprint. So as new levels, maybe I can mention the network equipment eco-design on which NGMN is focusing, circularity, which is about reusing and recycling equipment, also energy efficiency of networks on which we have been working for a long time, like on those what we call advanced sleep mode features. So there are a number of levels that we wish to push and to work all together in order to make it a standard in our industry.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for that. Now there's another 6G question come through as expected. Mike, let me turn to you for this one. What will be the role of mobile network operators in 6G?
Good morning. Thanks, Guy. It's a great question. Let me first say I think our role is very, very critical because we're the bridge between the device OEMs, the various partners, and the infrastructure providers and the end user. And so our role is critical. And I view it as one where we need to keep the industry focused on the benefits to society and the consumer as we work on the use cases and applications, as Luke mentioned, and the various technologies that will make up 6G. I believe if we stay focused on the consumer and the benefits to the consumer, our role will then focus on outcomes, and it really needs to be outcomes. If you look back in the past, there have been a number of examples where we focused on the technology. CDMA, wideband CDMA are examples, maybe WiMAX and LTE, and they're great technologies, but it caused fragmentation, which led to orphan technology, sub-optimized investments. And the good news is we recognize that, we've learned from that. And I believe NGMN plays a unique role because they have a unique perspective and a very collaborative approach, and is best positioned to provide guidance to the industry to ensure that fragmentation doesn't happen. At the end of the day, our goal as operators and as an industry is to provide a fully integrated end-to-end solution. That's important. It needs to be end-to-end. Previous technologies, and I'd argue to some extent 5G, will really focus more on RAN and the core. With 6G, that can't be the case. It needs to be end-to-end, encompassing platforms, network services, end-to-end management, security, the gamut. And the role as a connectivity provider will be enhanced, as well as the partners, when you think about the value chain or the value pie, if we can keep focused on outcomes in that end-to-end perspective. And again, I think NGMN plays a very unique and special role in ensuring that happens so that we can deliver on the promise of 6G. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, very clear differentiation there. Question about NGMN and its new work plan. So Anita, let me put that one across to you. The question is, what impact do you expect to create with your outcomes?
Thank you. So I mean, in the past, and to some parts also today, NGMN developed requirements, and the requirements were submitted, for instance, to 3GPP to support the generation of the global standard. We all know that this will also play a role today and in future. We have in addition developments where, for instance, open source solutions gain importance. We have more and more organizations we cooperate with, for instance, with ORAN or with the Linux Foundation. And our clear objective is that we don't want to just produce paper. I mean, we never did this, but I want to be very clear that we want to be more agile, and we have to be fast in many cases, faster than in the past, and provide impact to the industry for the benefit of the entire ecosystem. To give you a few examples, I mean, one part will be, of course, still to submit requirements to 3GPP, to ITU and alike, With the Linux Foundation, we will cooperate together for all our 3 new focus topics. So for disaggregation, for the Green Future Network sustainability, and also for 6G. Some projects cover also 5G still. This is clearly our objective, and to provide also some examples from the impact NGMN generated in the past. I mean, one big impact is the support of a global standard, which is the vital basis for mass market adoption. But for instance, also the network slicing feature was brought in by NGMN requirements back in 2015 when the first 5G white paper was created. And this type of impact, this is clearly our objective, and we will adopt it flexibly depending on the topics, because as mentioned before, the topics we currently tackle, some are short-term, some are mid-term, some are more long-term.
Thanks, Anita. Question specifically for Luke here has just come in. Which frequency bands do you plan to use for next generation mobile?
I think it's, as we've just been saying, a little bit early to say now. We're still assessing the use cases. And by understanding the value and the outcome of those use cases, we'll navigate our way through the best technology choice and the best frequency band to deploy that technology in. I think we're not starting from the premise that we need brand new technology in a brand new frequency band this time around. We're trying to look first of all at what it is that would drive a departure from what we have and where we need to be really shaping and funneling the research efforts to get to those outcomes that provide some real benefit to people, to society, keep us sustainable, but also create an appetite for investment and help the industry to move forward. So, long answer. The short answer is we don't know yet. Let's see what the use cases turn out.
Thanks, Luke. We shall wait and see. And a question in, I think, Carlos, I'd like to ask this question to you. With O-RAN becoming a reality, how do we manage the challenges of syncing the various upgrades and features from vendor partners who will contribute towards a zero-based approach on building cloud-native networks?
Yeah, I mean, thank you again for that one. Let me start by saying again that I wanted really to be very clear and specific on the work that NGMN is doing, particularly when it comes to disaggregation. It does cover O-RAN and it does cover other domains. Specifically on O-RAN, what we have seen and what our members have signaled to us that it is both an important and urgent topic is the fact that we have now many more players coming into the ecosystem. We have many more interfaces being designed that require integration, testing, validation, certification, understanding that it works from an end-to-end perspective. And therefore, what we from NGMN side want to do is to ensure that, first of all, the industry understands the pain and the hurt that the operators will feel when embracing this type of capabilities. Bear in mind that, as mentioned in the previous interventions, operators have been refining and using their own processes for the past years. They are very accustomed to those. They like to have very well-defined interfaces and SLAs towards the suppliers. And now coming with a multitude, a vast number of suppliers coming in, everyone at their own pace, we definitely need to invest quite a lot when it comes to pre-certification or pre-validation integration. A lot of work done in the lab so that we can then move forward and be fast in deploying those solutions. And this is, as mentioned, what NGMN is tackling within the OVIN project. It's about understanding what is being done at those players and see what type of guidance we can provide to the industry so that they realize that they cannot come all at the same time. They need to work together, and they have to have a plan to approach the operators with solutions rather than just creating a headache to the operating way.
Thank you, Carlos. And thanks to our viewers for sending in questions, because we've just got a new one in now about sustainability. So, Emmanuel, I'm going to ask this question to you. And the question is, Green Future Networks is mentioned as one topic of immediate concern. So what are the other initiatives that we can expect from NGMN besides those deliverable this year? What are you planning to do with regards to sustainability for 2022?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. First, I think that in the next phase of that project, we would have to focus on a more end-to-end view of the carbon footprint of the networks that may include all the life cycle of equipment, but also user devices, and also some other parts of the networks. Also, we might focus ourselves on critical raw material, pollution, material scarcity of all the supply chain. I think that I would say that other areas, other segments of the industry do have methodologies, but we have to apply them to network equipment. Maybe also one of the next focus and area of interest would be to work on the water consumption of the supply chain. Also explore new ways of working and new business models like network as a service, renting of equipment, and so on. So there are still a number of topics to be explored.
Thank you, Emmanuel. We look forward to hearing more about those other topics. As a question here, again, it's about 6G. Luke, I may ask you this one first, but if anybody else wants to jump in afterwards, they're more than welcome. Luke, use cases around 5G are still to be figured out. So how can we predict 6G use cases for 2030 and beyond?
Yeah, another a good question. So I think we have to remember that 5G itself is still in a relatively early stage. We're still building out the technology, and as we continue to help to transform many industries and to make things better for our consumer customers as well, we're seeing lots of exciting new use cases emerging for 5G, which is starting to broaden the landscape of what we can do. And that's really our baseline for considering what we can do with 6G in terms of use case. So it comes back to the drivers and the vision paper that we published earlier with NGMN, which we referred to in the first part of this session. We're looking to understand which of those emerging use cases for 6G can really move the needle versus what we can do with the technology that we already have, which ones can be investable in, which ones provide the right outcome and can be delivered in a way that is sustainable. I was also reflecting, Guy, on the opening question to this session in terms of why we chose these three areas, and building on what Anita said right at the beginning, I think is important as well, because they're all connected. So as we look at how 6G will be built and the use cases, it's also likely to be built on disaggregated network principles. And of course, we need to make sure that it reflects the green and sustainable priorities that we have in the third project. So if you like, as we move forward, we see all three of those being very closely coupled and linked. And that's the lens through which we need to look at some of these emerging 6G use cases as well. In terms of can we accurately predict? No. What we would like to see, though, is to have enough flexibility baked into the technology at this stage, so that as we start to see things that we can't actually imagine or conceive of today, we do at least know that we have the flexibility to incorporate those and to address them in the future. That would be the ideal.
Good to hear. Thank you very much, Luke. Interesting question here, Anita. What about hyperscalers in NGMN? Would they be welcome to join?
Indeed, we do have a number of projects running where the skills and know-how of hyperscalers would fit perfectly in, and all collaborating partners would benefit. So we should be able to submit news on that one soon.
We shall await news with interest then. Thank you, Anita. A topical question here. Mike, can you help us with this one? Considering the current geopolitical situation, how can we achieve global standards?
Great question. It's not an easy task, for sure. However, we've learned from previous standards what works and what doesn't. And I think we were much better at 5G. And I believe we're going to be even better with 6G. First, you have to agree we need a global standard. And the good news is I think it's hard to argue against the need to lower cost to deliver and serve. the need to improve energy efficiency for the benefit of the climate, the need to provide ubiquitous access to drive equality, and the need for open systems to drive a sustainable and diverse ecosystem. All the carriers agree with that. The industry agrees with that. That makes it a lot easier when you have these principles to get down to the nitty-gritty of defining the use cases and the actual technologies that will compose the new standard. And that will drive clarity and alignment on the critical KPIs. Again, back to Luke's comment around outcomes. We need to stay focused on the outcomes. I think a good starting point, as Anita mentioned, is the United Nations Sustainability Goals. It's a good place to start for guidance. And then you leverage groups like NGMN to refine the goals and the objectives, define the KPIs, get those into the SDOs, and hash out the differences. And NGMN has a history of providing that leadership over various technology generations. So I'm very optimistic we'll learn from the past and apply those learnings to 6G. And it's really important because fragmentation leads, as I mentioned earlier, to orphan technologies, stranded ecosystems, sub-optimized investments, and nobody wants that. That's not good for the industry. It's not good for manufacturers, and it's not good for customers. So for the 6G project in NGMN, just structurally what we've done to avoid the fragmentation, we brought together and have co-leads with global coverage, regional representation, covering America, Asia, Europe, and we'll align our views across all the team members to get that into the standards. So again, very excited at the opportunity. And one of the things, if I could just add to Luke's comment, I thought his answer to the question on use cases was spot on, is when we think about 6G, it's not just about new emerging use cases. It'll be about sustaining 5G use cases. Keep in mind, we have a perspective on the 5G use cases, but we're still wrestling with the monetization of those. And so I think 6G will help us extend those, sustain them, get the most out of them, as Luke said, with an eye on emerging use cases with the new technology. Back to you, Guy.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike, for that. We've got a very interesting question just come in. Yu Hong, maybe you could start by answering this one. The question is, I'd like to know more about how NGMN plans to approach the population aging aspect from the perspective of the telco industry as one of the big potential opportunities to study, as well as societal responsibilities such as strategy on collaboration among multiple sectors of the global society.
Yeah, a great question. So I think we discussed your previous question is how we develop 6G user cases. So we think it's important for operator, not for telecom industry, not only work within our industry, but we need to extend our cooperation with other area, other industry. As we learned from 5G, it's very important for telecom industry to work with a lot of new vertical industry. So for NGMN, we think if we want to give a good guidance to the industry development, we also need to extend our cooperation with other sector of the society, and each individual member also need to closely work with other industry. For example, within our company, we set up a joint innovation center, and we have close cooperation with partners like the manufacturing company, and like the car company, and medical, and education sector, a lot of vertical industry. So we also encourage them to look into the future. We jointly develop the user case towards the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuhong. Thanks very much for that. Anita.
Yeah, just to add what Yuhong just said. So in our 6G project, when we started to work on the drivers and vision, we reached out actually to a number of organizations which are completely out of the telecommunication industry, asking for input with regards to requirements. And we understand that 2030 maybe it's a bit a long-term vision for some of them, but this is also an invite again to those organizations and others to collaborate with us, to reach out to us so that we can gather the input and really aim for addressing societal needs with the next generation. Over to you.
Thanks, Anita. And Luke.
Just to very quickly build on that as well, I was just reflecting on the experience that I think we all had as network operators as we went from 4G to 5G. And we had a lot of vertical industries and customers engaging to understand how 5G could address their requirements. And what we found a lot of the time was actually we could address a lot of, or rather the majority of the requirements using some of the techniques and the solutions we already had. And I suspect we'll see the same thing here. People will come with a view of this needs 6G to solve it, and we will find that where we are with 5G and the rapidly evolving capabilities of 5G will let us start to make some real headroads into addressing or delivering some useful solutions and outcomes into those industries that we can then build on further as we look at what the art of the possibilities with 6G. So this is going to be very much a continuum as we continue to develop the technology.
Thank you for that, Luke. We are just over our 30-minute mark, but I just wanted to get one more question in because Anita, you mentioned in your last response about collaboration then, and there's a question in about that, and perhaps we could maybe finish on this question from our audience. And the question, Anita, is, do you have specific plans for collaboration with organizations such as Linux Networking or O-RAN Alliance or any other organizations?
Absolutely. So we already increased our cooperation landscape, let's call it like that, by closing agreements with O-RAN, but also with the Linux Foundation. And as mentioned earlier, so to build on what we said earlier, we have a number of different areas at the moment. We have the classic SDOs, we have new organizations. We need to be open and at the same time focused, what actually is the challenge, to not miss the train with regards to new development. And therefore, yes, I mean, we are open to new cooperation agreements, not just because of agreements, but to really collaborate, to exchange information, to help our topics to be developed for the benefit of the end users and the market. And as also Mike said earlier, to achieve real, true global standards at the end of the day.
Thank you very much for those final words, Anita, because we are out of time, unfortunately. It's been a terrific discussion, but we do have to end now. And apologies if we didn't have time to get to your question, but we will be sharing all the questions we received with the NGMN after the show. So thank you again to our guests. Pleasure speaking to you all and to our audience watching online. This press and industry briefing will be made available to view again on demand in case you missed any of it. And a reminder that there will be another NGMN panel discussion next week, which takes a more in-depth look at the NGMN disaggregation end-to-end operating model. For now though, thank you for watching and goodbye.